To another episode of Forever Bristol City podcast. Well, it was so Bristol City, wasn't it? 5-goal display against an awful Blackburn Rovers side in midweek, and then up Huddersfield, themselves beaten 4-1 at Preston, and a 1-1 draw. So the good thing is the unbeaten run's maintained. It wasn't a great performance in my view. I left on the 94th minute. There you go. So I was halfway down the underneath the suspension bridge, I think, when I realised that we got one back. So there it is. I felt a little bit depressed after the game, probably because I had a touch of flu about me as well or something. Sorry, guys, sat next to me.
Thanks for the
catch something. Come to each of you, as we do, as is customary. Neil, 30 seconds. What were your thoughts walking away? I guess you saw it right to the end.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No. And my wife had a nice right go at me.
Did she?
Yeah, bless her. I left at about 95 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas and I left at 95. I think we were halfway down Ashton Road when we got it. I didn't
even hear the cheer. That's how far away from I
was. Sloppy first half performance. I think a number of the players were culpable on it. It was a better performance in the second half, but it had that feeling of them wanting it a little bit more.
Which they
did, second half. And I think they got into it a little bit more second half. Rodoni was at the heart of their good play in the second half. I think they looked to him, and he certainly looks like he's bulked up as a player.
Yeah,
I remember him being tall and skinny before, but he looks.
He's a fair-haired lad, isn't he?
Yeah, he is now.
He's the guy. And interestingly, Dave Febbs on one of the transfer threads said he would much prefer him, and he's talked about Rodoni before. We much prefer him to Scott Twine, but we can talk about Scott Twine later as well. Okay, Ian, what were your thoughts? You were physically there yesterday. You stayed until the bitter end. I mean, what positives could you take from that?
We got a point. It maintained the unbeaten run. We've got 11 out the last 18 points. We're still third in the current form league. We've still got the fourth best defensive record. Over the season, we've got the 9th best home record in the league. The performance for me lacked energy and tempo right from the start, and we made a lot of our own mistakes. The makeshift defence was probably the best part of the team. And when you consider we were without a fit centre half at the club, then that's truly shocking. But that's how our injuries happen. They come in clumps and they come in positions that are normally, in fact, 95% of the time, central defence and central midfield. And as I've said, and I'm going to go on saying it and get on people's nerves, no doubt, but who cares? We are injury prone, and therefore we are inconsistent, and we have a small squad, and we will continue to be so. And yesterday was exactly what I thought it would be. It was tired. It was lethargic. It lacked energy. I think Manning made some poor decisions yesterday around substitutes in team selections, and I no doubt we'll talk about that later on. But if you look at the back three we lined up with,
all right, let's talk about the lineup in a second, Ian.
All right, I'll talk about the lineup in a second. But it wasn't. It was Blackburn was everything that wasn't. And once again, we had this key problem that we've had for years, that we had a lot of possession, and we don't know what to do with it. And that's another problem that has to be sorted in the summer, because it can't be sorted from within the current squad.
All right. Tom, let's come to you next, and then Mark. What were your thoughts? I mean, Ian said we lacked energy. He did say that, Ian. Ian said we lacked energy, but they came off the back of a 4-1 defeat. They looked pretty up for it, I thought.
We were at sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, having won 5-0 and then getting thumped 4-1. I thought that looked like the performance that we had pre-Twine, that Twine was supposed to come in and sort out. The slow moving, going round back, like sort of round wide, coming back in, resetting the play. I thought this is the one that everyone's going, right, put Twine in and he can play through the middle, we'll get him on the ball and he'll sort out when we're in possession. And ultimately he went missing yesterday. I thought it was just really poor, like almost when we were going through a really poor spell where we couldn't get a result across the line. It was that sort of performance. And luckily, I know we'll get onto it, but we didn't deserve anything yesterday at all.
Mm.
And you walked away from that game just feeling flat. Any sort of the buzz after Blackburn was sort of killed by that performance.
That 100% agree with that, and which is so Bristol City. You know, either we play rubbish on a Tuesday, okay, Saturday, or great in midweek. I can't remember the last time we've put back-to-back performances together that lift your spirits. Because, you know, as I said a moment ago, I felt thoroughly depressed after that game. No, that's not the right word. I just pissed off. You know, oh God. Mark, what were your thoughts?
Right. I think the key thing that really set us back was taking Jason Knight out of his central midfield role alongside James and playing him as a number 10. So we looked completely lost. Matos and Konsumu, who were in the central midfield for Huddersfield, completely bullied and dominated us in the first half. We were so tentative trying to play our way out the back. We just didn't know what to do. And Sorba Thomas was creating a lot on the right as well. So we just, every time we played out from the back, they just pushed their defence up and just bullied us, kicked, bruised. Max got clattered, I think, by Bergsord. They got a couple of bookings. To her credit, Rebecca Welsh doled out the yellow cards early. I thought she had an excellent game. We might come to that later, but really good with the cards. But we just didn't know what to do. They just completely bullied and dominated us with their physicality. You're right about Swine. He had an awful game yesterday. What City did do is, in the face of conceding a sloppy goal, they were resilient. They kept going to the end, driven by Roberts, who was excellent again yesterday. Got the goal right at the end. The game could have gone, but there were injuries. In added time. And of course, the penalty took 2 to 3 minutes to take because of their play acting. And Heelick, I think he was going to try and chain himself to the penalty spot to make it it took so long. And credit Naki Wells. So a good end to a poor game, and we got a point, and that could easily have been lost.
Yeah, you're right. Talking about the lineup, Neil. You know, we say it's weakened, and Ian says we haven't got a recognised centre half, which is true when you look at Naismith and Atkinson out and Viner out as well yesterday. But equally, Ian said that the back
and Dickey
and Dickey. For Christ, I forgot him as well. Yeah, was it a back three or a back four yesterday? Back three. So a back three. What's that? McCrory, Tanner, and Roberts. Yeah, and then Sykes and Pring as wing backs effectively.
Yeah.
I mean, the key thing, Mark alluded to it, it was pushing Knight back or pushing Knight forward. Bad selection, wasn't it?
It's, even though there was like only one change and it was Matty James coming in for Viner on the starting 11, the dynamics of it just completely changed, didn't it? It was the one change. But then Sykes moving back to right wing back, and he had an awful first half and marginally better second half, but still a poor game. And the right side, I don't think McCrory had a great game either, really, on the right-hand side. So that whole right side was not working. And then, as they've said, bringing Knight out from that just meant the two in the middle. I mean, they put a press on, a really effective press on against us, particularly in the first half. And we didn't know how to play. We were slow to react to that press. They did to us the first half what we do so often to so many other teams with that press, and we were just lethargic. Lethargic is the word, isn't it? Really,
Inept I use, but somebody berated me for that.
I'm not sure inept. I wouldn't say inept.
Lethargic,
lethargic,
okay.
sloppy, and lethargic.
Yeah, Ian, Tommy starting up front. It's just been a feature of the season. I mean, he doesn't get service, does he? Does he go looking for the ball enough for you?
Yeah, he does. I mean, if I'd have been Tommy Conway or not Naki Wells in certain games this season, I'd have just walked off the pitch and said to the manager, whether it was Pearson or whether it was Manning, look, you might as well stick a centre half on up front, because if you're going to smash the ball 3 feet above my head, and I'm being marked by people 3 feet taller than me, then we're all wasting our time, aren't we? The reason we were better in the second half is we actually started to pass the ball on the floor. because when you looked at the lineups once again, and every week I look at the lineups when they're all walking along shaking hands, it's like Land of the Giants out there. And if you look, that was probably, I was trying to think of previous Bristol City teams being quite sad, and that was probably one of the smallest teams we've ever fielded. And people say, well, it's all about how good they are as footballers. Yeah, it is if you get the ball down on the ground. But if you play like we did in the first half, we were dreadful. Now, we build up from the back. Now, normally, the best person at bringing the ball out is Dickie. Second best bloke is probably, who's played regularly, is probably Viner. And Roberts is right up there. So we had two of them missing yesterday. So that's not going to be good. People are saying, well, James and Williams together, it's not a great combo. It was a great combo when we beat Southampton. I think it was a great combo also when we beat Watford. I'm not sure. So it's not that, but Joe Williams' first touch was a pass, and his positional play was terrible.
He was awful. I thought he was particularly poor in possession.
Yeah, well, in the first 25, 30 minutes, I said to somebody, this has got to be the worst half of football we've seen. He said, it's not even close, mate. And I said, well, how do you mean? He said, have you forgotten Coventry at home this season when we should have been 5-0 down at half time and we went in 1-0 up? And he said, well, the two players from that, well, I thought about it, and the two players who got the goal from that, neither of them were on the field. Dickie was injured. Gardner Hickman was on the bench, and I'm surprised he didn't make an appearance because I'd have made changes at half time, and that's one of the things over and above the lineup. I think you're dead right about Jason Knight. He is not a 10, and I really don't like it when the team lines up with him there.
No,
he's that 8 in driving from the midfield. We had 2 10s available, Mehmeti and Twine, and they can actually play there, and we've seen them play there and do well. So why not do that? Why not get Taylor Gardner-Hickman to start in midfield, as opposed to Joe Williams, who started versus Blackburn on the Wednesday?
Okay.
So he made mistakes with the initial lineup. I didn't really like his subs. For example, why couldn't we see Mabudi for the last 10, 15 minutes instead of Sykes, who I thought didn't have a great game? And I don't like that. While we're on the subject, I don't like Sykes at right wing back. So, you know, there is no need to line up as we did, even though there are lots of excuses around having a weakened team.
Okay. All right.
So, and it was regretfully exactly what I expected.
Okay. Tom, Ian said about the midfield combo of Williams and James. It featured in some of our sparkling wins this season. I think there's not enough energy. Those games apart, they just look. That was where it all went wrong yesterday, wasn't it, in midfield? Because, you know, to me, they have more about them in that area of the pitch, didn't they?
When the other team have a press on, like Huddersfield ditch, you need a dynamic midfielder in there to break it up, even to play on the back foot. And you look at our midfield 2 yesterday who are sitting. Can anyone receive ball on the back foot? I would argue not. I don't think Williams' touch is very good. I think you'd be looking at Matty James is quite where he got exposed as how slow he is yesterday.
It's
pedestrian. I think when teams put a press on Matty James, he does struggle. I think he's strong, but he's quite slow in his movements. And Williams is combative, but in possession, I don't think I've ever really thought he was brilliant. I think you miss Knight. I think his ability to break up and then just take people on, whether it's you gain a foul, you move us 10 yards up the pitch, or you just engage players who initiate a press. I thought our pressing yesterday was woeful, really. I mean, that was just like all the pressing we'd done against Blackburn, really squeezing, narrowing the pitch. It was just sort of undone. I thought it was like disconnected. I thought, you know, with Taylor Gardner-Hickman, for me, I don't really see it at the minute. Where does he come in? And I could easily see Taylor Gardner-Hickman, the nicest well in the world, becoming what he was at like West Brom, as a bit part bench player who comes on 15, 20 minutes. Because for me, I don't think he's a 6. Next season, Max Bird's here. He's taking Matty James's spot. And then you want Jason Knight deeper. And it's like, well, where does Taylor Gardner-Hickman? He's not a 10 for me, you know. And
is he a right wing back?
He's definitely, well, he's played there, but is he going to be better than Tanner there? I really
was
like
he
Tanner.
better than
Tanner's best player. Oh, I don't like McCroy. I think better than McCroy.
Yeah.
I think McCroy got exposed. When McCroy's come in, he's a brilliant athlete. He's got real pace and power, but that is his game, pace and power. And you can see why Pearson signed this athlete, because
He's not very good footballer.
he's not a great footballer. He's not a brilliant technician with the ball. How many times have we seen him? The way McCroy dribbles at people is he'll take a big touch and try and run onto it and just outpace them, outmuscle them.
And the physicality, that's what he does. No, you're right. Absolutely right. Mark, what did you think? Let's pick individual players. I thought Pring looked particularly leaden-footed yesterday, and it wasn't only me saying that, it was people around me. And Sykes didn't seem on his game, some woeful crossing from him. But what did you think of those two, and any comments to add on the shape of the team that the other guys have said?
Well, one Sykes cross. I mean, he crossed it for a throw-in, didn't he, from the Lansdowne over to the Dolman stand when players were well placed, and Pring wasn't effective. City looked tired again after the Blackburn game, and they were really beaten up by Huddersfield yesterday. There were lots of fouls, and they just didn't know how to cope. It's like small boys, getting beaten up in the playground the way it was. But yeah, both of those players were poor. Well, I agree what you say about Jason Knight. When he's in that midfield too, he can play as the pivot with James. James sits in front of the defence. Knight can still do recovery work, excellent recovery in the centre. Mops up in the centre of the park and then drives. But then, of course, you lose all that behind if he's played. But yeah, just yesterday we just were totally clueless going forward. The first half, we just kept giving passes away straight back to them.
Unforced errors, or are they forced
errors?
Because of the press?
And in the second half, we got a little bit better at keeping possession, a little bit better, and we created some chances. But yeah, Pring and Sykes as the wing backs were both poor. And I think what you said about Garner Hickman, I wonder if Garner Hickman didn't get on because Manning didn't want to risk him because he wasn't. I mean, he can't be fully fit. And
well, don't put him on the bench then.
I don't understand why he wasn't. He didn't come on. Do we at least add some solidity and some energy where there was none in a team? I mean,
I'd like to know when Mabudi is going to kick a ball other than his training.
Well, I do not think
sprinters in his ass.
I don't think it's worth talking about. I mean, it's like Mabudi is like the position we were in. Do you remember we signed Darren Caskey on loan in the 2003-04 season? I think he got on the pitch for about 2 minutes. It's not even worth talking about. It's not going to happen, is it? So.
But do you think he should play for the under-21s? They must have a game.
He should play for the under-21s.
If he's not in an under-21 team, then there's something.
But it's not helping his career. Yeah. If he's not playing regular football.
How do you know?
Whatever.
How do you know that he's not on some kind of appearance money, Dave?
Yeah, that might be it. But I'm not. I don't understand why he's not playing.
That's possibly why he's not turning out for the under-21s.
Okay.
Possible, but it's a bit of a strange one. But I think it's a waste of airtime talking about somebody that's not going to feature.
No, you're right. Okay, let's get into the action. As I say, I was struggling to write any notes.
Is that your notes?
That's it. It's not a lot here, everybody. This week
it's 3 lines.
Particularly bad. It's particularly bad. I was just going to say, we'll take me through the first half of each of you. But I mean, what I did pick up in the first half, again, Rodoni to Thomas cross, Burzorg, Neil clattered into Max, and Max was feeling that even late on in the game. And I wouldn't have minded betting if we had a midweek game coming up this week, he might have been a bit stiff, and we might have seen Badgett coming.
He, from your position in what are you?
Lower Lansdowne,
W13.
Yeah,
W13. You probably didn't see Badgett, did you? Badgett was in the centre because I'm in a dolman. Badgett was warming up at half time and spent about 20 minutes warming up down that tunnel. And he was gloved up and he was ready to come on. And Max, that second half, he couldn't kick the ball. There was a shot from Rodoni which went wide, and he went down in about 3 stages and struggled to get back up again afterwards. And you're like watching it and you're thinking, why is Badgett not coming on? But it's clear that Badgett's not going to be here next year. I mean, the want of a backup goalkeeper is kind of.
So who have we got as backup at the moment? We got this Forest Green bloke lurking.
Lewis Thomas, who must have something on the club to get an 18-month contract. He must have something on John Lansdowne, some compromising photographs or something like that to get an 18-month contract. I mean, nobody else could with it. But
perhaps get back in the real world where the rest of us live, not down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. Perhaps he did well playing for the under-21s, and they thought the priority isn't a goalkeeper because Max is going well. And I take your point about needing a backup, Neil. I think that's quite correct.
Yeah.
And they thought, well, at a push, these guys can come in and do a shift. But that something might be addressed in the summer. But I'll tell you now, it's still not seen as a priority. So they must think somebody can stand in for him.
Lewis Thomas is 26. He's on loan at Bromley at the minute.
He's
well, you've got to give the bloke games to keep him fit, and the same with Wells Richards is out on loan.
But
and the one that they really think is going to be the one that comes through is the lad that plays for the under-18s, Joe Duncan, who was being watched by England, but he's decided he's going to play for Jamaica, and he's gone into the Jamaican under-23 squad.
Yeah, but the thing with Lewis Thomas I don't get is I think he's there because he's worked with Pat Mountain before. I think Pat Mountain trusts him, but I don't think he's ever going to make an appearance for us because Bashik's going and Lewis Thomas is 26 and his only senior appearance has been with Forest Green. And it's like he's clearly not cut out for a championship. And
but I mean, Forest Green.
Another goalkeeper that sounds like a spaghetti 1970s spaghetti western.
Casagrande.
Where's he?
He's on loan above.
No, he's been recalled. So Lewis Thomas has gone Bromley, and Casagrande now does the warm ups with the first team. But Casagrande, why would you not have him on the bench over Bashik? Number one, if Bashik's going, don't have him on the bench. There's no point in it. You may as well have Casagrande
or Lewis Thomas even.
Well,
if you're giving him an 18-month contract,
he's on loan. But I don't understand.
Or Joe Duncan.
Joe Duncan's, he would be in the 21s next year, but I don't understand Lewis Thomas at all. I mean, it is a bit of a pointless point because he's never going to play. He's not going to be on much money. But it's like, well, what is the point of Lewis Thomas?
If you remember when Lewis Thomas came in, Wells Richards had a bad injury,
but that was it,
and he was out. So I could understand having it. I don't get the 18-month contract that would have been signed off by Liam Manning et al. So they must have seen a reason to keep him, and we've just got to leave that to their judgment. I don't think it's worth talking about, to be perfectly honest, but I don't think there's a conspiracy theory there. And if Badgick wants to leave, then he leaves, and we've still got a rake of goalkeepers down there. Now, whether any of them are good enough is a moot point. I haven't seen enough of any of them to judge. To be totally honest.
Where's Wells Richards? Sorry if you said it.
He's on loan. Is it Weymouth?
Yeah, Weymouth.
He's on loan.
National League South, aren't they?
Yeah. It's a reasonable standard. It's men's football, and that's what he needs to play to develop. He ain't gonna, get brilliant playing for the under-21s.
He's out of contract.
Who?
Wells Richards.
No, didn't he sign a new contract last year?
No, that was a 1-year extension. He's out of contract.
A 1-year extension. Well, they got the chance to make their mind up, haven't they? If they either give him a new contract, or they might say, right, you can go. Badgick's going. We'll bring a keeper in. So I would say just wait and see. But I don't hold any conspiracy theories about it.
All right. More conspiracy theories later on.
I think to underline this, we should just say let's hope Max is fit next week because he's going to get beaten up by Josh Sargent and Ashley Giles, Ashley Barnes.
And I think he may well have not played had we had a midweek game. I have to say this is amongst one of the first on here. I've got a text on the live feed from Dave Fev saying, agree, Ian. So Ian and Dave Fev's in agreement over a particular point.
Yeah.
That's the first. Mark, I'll stick with you.
It's actually, Dave, you're putting out a bit of clickbait there. Dave and I agree on a huge amount, particularly the financial situation of the club. Where we disagree is on certain things about an ex-manager and form, etc. But I agree greatly with a lot of what Dave says, and we've had some in-depth discussions on the financial situation, and we're 150% aligned on it.
That's good, Mark.
Let's just say that.
In the absence of any notes of substance from me on the first half action, is there anything you would like to add by way of colour on that opening 45 minutes?
No, the whistle was a relief. I mean, by God, was it a relief? I said I wouldn't. I couldn't believe how much I hated that game. That first half, it was goddamn bloody awful.
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing that puts you off going to football,
It
Yeah.
does.
isn't it?
It does.
You think I was sat there thinking I've driven 75 miles from my house to watch this, and I had more fun having a cup of coffee before the game
I think
than
root canal
I did
surgery.
that first half.
Yeah,
Was
I'd
root
that
rather
canal
walk-
surgery
coffee
would
before
have
the
been
game
more.
with Mark, Ian, were you?
Yeah, well, that was the best part of it. Having him in Woods discussing the finer points of, I don't know, absolute rubbish that astounds me. But
Yeah.
I just sit there like this.
I'd just like to say
Yeah.
that Ian and I agree on lots of points about football, especially for the financial side. Just wanted to add that.
Reconciliation tour, isn't
It's
it?
like-
Feb's month.
It's like a giant Tinder today. Isn't it?
Right.
Nothing wrong with Tinder, Neil. It's Grinder. It's Grinder that I'm not on. That's the one
Well,
I'm not on.
you didn't make that MP on there.
What-
No, I didn't.
I thought it was
Tom,
Grinder. I thought it was
Tom,
about smiling.
You're a youngster in relative terms, certainly to us, me in particular. Rebecca Welch, the referee, right?
Yeah.
I thought she did okay. She did a couple of early yellow cards, so stamped her authority on them. They were well deserved. She got a little bit of ribbing when she lost her earpiece, because there were a few people around me saying, "Lost one of your earrings, dear," when she was going around trying to pick some old pitch. But did you think she's not the worst referee we've had down there? Although looking at social media, Huddersfield are going ballistic, and obviously even Joey Barton's jumping in Huddersfield's defence on his Twitter feed.
Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant.
Expletive deleted.
She was firm.
Yeah.
She was giving out yellows like there was no tomorrow. It's Huddersfield players.
5.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, oh, some of these are not yellows. I thought I don't think she let much go for either team. I think they did foul us more. But it was an awful decision for the penalty. That is the luckiest decision we'll have this season, because how is that a penalty? I do not know.
Yeah.
But I thought for 99 minutes that she was okay. But yeah, the yellows, I thought most of them she got right. There were a few where I thought,
Yeah.
like,
And
There were
Roberts
six,
was the
there were
only one.
6 yellows for Huddersfield.
six
Well,
yellows for Huddersfield.
6
yeah.
for Huddersfield, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
six
And
for
one of
Huddersfield.
ours, Roberts, got booked.
I think there
for
was
us.
2 for the penalty. I thought one appealed it, and then.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. Okay, into the second half, Neil, and Rudoni, he put a shot wide. And then Thomas bought a save from Max at the near post. Come to each of you for the goal. You first, Neil, then Ian. Rudoni, as we've said, looked a good player yesterday. Sort of player if Huddersfield got relegated. I don't know how much he would be compared to Scott Twine, but should we have done better with the goal? Rudoni's cross took a deflection, and Karoma, he just had to blast it in, a bit like Naki did for the final goal on Wednesday night.
Yeah, to me, Rudoni, I remember him watching him a few years ago when he was at Wimbledon, and we sort of spoke about him and he came up in conversations. And he played for Huddersfield, and you could see a player there. There was a quickness, there was a touch, and in the centre and everything. But he looked quite slight of build and to get bullied. He seems to have bulked up. He seems to have a bit more strength, and in the middle, actually, everything they did well through the middle went through Rudoni. I mean, he's still got a couple of years on his contract. So I don't think that's an easy transfer to make if they went down. I think he would have suitors in the championship.
Better than us.
I think you're talking a Twine-esque 5 million type fee to get him out of Huddersfield, which is with 2 years.
Well, we're not going to
left
spend
on
it.
So
We're not going to spend that money, are we?
well,
So,
and therein lies the
Right.
issue. I think there's other clubs inside the championship that would be looking at Rudoni as a type of player to actually, do something this year. Next season. So tough. But I was impressed by him yesterday.
Yeah. And as for the goal, I mean, he made
As for
it
the
to
goal,
deflection.
we
Could we have done better?
we lost the ball in midfield, and Pring got caught up field, and it was a deflection, but we all got sucked into the line. And Sykes, as Ian has said, I don't see Sykes when you ask him to do defensive work. It's never a pleasant view when you ask him to do defensive work. And as we rushed back, we all sort of rushed back onto the line, and it got deflected out to Corona. And Sykes was 5-6 yards away from him there. I mean, the guy, you're not marking the guy, and he's in the box, and there's nobody within
About
5-6
yards
yards.
from goal.
And I know it was
It's
deflected. It was deflected to him, but you're still thinking, oh, just run back towards. It's a bit aimless, isn't it? In the box, you know, with it, and then there's a finish, and then you're talking about an injured goalkeeper that we just played with an injured goalkeeper the whole of the second half.
We did.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell with Max, there was a few times when the ball was passed back to him that he really wasn't comfortable. Perhaps on his left-hand side, I think it's his left leg,
Yeah.
the one that got clattered. There were times in the second half where he could have kicked the ball with his left leg, and he chose not to, and then put us under a bit of pressure. With regards to it, I just didn't see it yesterday. I mean, Ian's spoken about the subs, and maybe I'll leave Ian to speak about the subs, but there was a Huddersfield didn't really go for it, and I was like watching. They've got to win. They didn't do a substitution until about 80 minutes. They went 80 minutes without a substitution.
But then they might have thought,
and then we didn't really grab the
Okay.
ball by the horns and do anything proactive either.
All right.
Subs-wise.
Ian, the goal, and I think you wanted to talk about our substitutions as well. So do the goal first. I mean, do you think we could have defended it better? I guess any goal you can, unless it's a worldie. But and what did you think of the timing of our subs and the fact we only did
Modern
2?
defending is a funny thing, and a lot of modern defenders aren't strangely good defenders. They tend to be blokes who are better on the ball, coming forward, but they tend to drop back and guard the goal line as opposed to mark their player. And you'll see this if you watch Premier League games. You'll see them do exactly the same thing. You see players unmarked, 10 yards, 8 yards out, and the defenders standing between them and the goal, but possibly up to 2 yards away. And you're not going to close somebody down or tackle them at that distance unless you've got really long legs. So I think that's something we need to work on. I mean, clearly defending is one of the things we're really good at. And defending is one of the things that Huddersfield are really bad at, although at times, particularly the second half, Neil's right, they didn't go for it. They should have gone for it. And I think they'd have beaten us. And they dropped off. And I don't know why. Because if you look at it, we finished up with 12 corners and 65% possession on a day where we couldn't pass for toffee. We really couldn't pass water yesterday. And it was just painful at times to watch. I mean, there was an example in the first half where Scott Twine got the ball. He's inside the box. Now he's got two choices. He can come inside on his right foot and go for the bender into the far corner like Anis's goal against Blackburn, or he can lay it off. He tries to lay it off 3 yards to Hayden Roberts and underhits the pass. Now that's a bloke where passing is meant to be his strength. Well, I think it is his strength. I've seen him hit some cracking passes and look to do some imaginative stuff. But yesterday, he wasn't on it. But he wasn't on his own. And when you get a performance like that, strangely enough, people see things differently. The former Players Association gave Cam Pring man of the match.
Unbelievable. I saw that too.
So, we all see a different game. Yeah, on the subs, I would have made the subs at half time. I'd have got Taylor Gardner-Hickman on in midfield so that they couldn't get on the ball as easily and we could win some second balls and possibly drive forward. I'd have got Naki on up front and gone with a 2 and went for it, tried to get in behind him and see him playing with Tommy, put their back 3 under more pressure because we did. I don't know who it was talked about the press. I think it was Tom talked about our press being poor early on. And as good as it was against Blackburn, and it was top class, it was really poor against Huddersfield.
Okay.
And that can only be down to, it's not desire, it's quality, energy, and tempo. of the players to be able to.
I think.
Well, hang on a minute, Dave. That do it week in and week out is something we're not going to do, and I'll stick to the why. But he could have brought in fresh players yesterday, and he could have made fresh substitutions at halftime, and he didn't. And I think that was a mistake.
Okay.
And it could have easily cost us the game. It didn't, because we got a penalty, and we'll go on to discuss that. I don't know how anybody can say it is or it isn't a penalty. On the camera angles I've seen, if someone's got one from behind the goal, great. I'd love to see it. But
we haven't got that camera angle. Mark,
there's no
I
VAR.
just say about the goal, which you
That's
haven't
it.
said, which nobody's mentioned.
go on, Mark.
Right. What it starts is halfway inside the Huddersfield half, Twine tries to play the ball with his right foot outside to Pring. Now, the goal was a great example of box-to-box play by Rodoni. He not only presses Twine, wins the ball, gets it to Thomas. Thomas plays it to Bergzorg, whose first touch is like a pass. Rodoni is galloping up the right and takes the pass. He crosses it into the area. It hits Pring's leg and then goes through goes through between James's legs. Sykes isn't marking Healy. McCrory's on his shoulder. Karoma's behind Sykes. God knows who Sykes is marking. But this all starts, and it's because of Rudoni's press and his intent to do box to box. Brilliant example of box to box play. Wins the ball halfway inside his own half. Takes a pass, a return pass from Bergzorg, and he's at the other end of the pitch. Fantastic. We'd like to see that from our players. Roberts is pushed too far up. City have got 5 players in a line in the area and 2 coming back in. So when the goals scored, there are 7 City players in the box. Crazy. 4. So there's 4 Huddersfield players attacking, 5 City players defending the line. Sykes, criminal piece. If he looks over his shoulder, all he's got to do is just drop onto Karoma, and he can't score. But he's just 5 yards off him. I mean, it's a criminal piece of defending, but credit Rodoni for creating that goal from his press and his willingness to get up the end of the pitch. Love to see that energy for us. So, we haven't had a box-to-box player, somebody like that. I don't know if he could do that every week since Josh Brownhill. So that's what.
Is that what Alex Scott should have been, maybe as well, type of thing, had he stayed with us?
He wasn't like that, was he? He was
interestingly, he doesn't seem to ever make not for the last.
Well, I think it's early, and Bournemouth have overperformed this season after a slow start. But Alex Scott was more about a creative midfielder in terms of passing and his ability to hold the ball up. He's not like a Josh Brown.
I see Josh Brownhill scored yesterday as well, although his goalkeeper, he won't be too happy with him, because last time I saw somebody doing that. But anyway,
let's underline this. Credit Rodoni for the Rodoni for the goal. The goal wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Rodoni's intent.
Yeah. When that Burnley goalkeeper let the ball run under his foot, it reminded me of Boxing Day up at West Brom back in when Keith Welsh was in goal, and I think it was a back pass from Stuart Munro, and it was behind
left back, wasn't it?
Yeah, Scottish left back, and it went trundling along, literally trundled into the back of the net. I got a feeling Flapper Phillips did the same up at Wolverhampton once as well. Came out.
Yeah, I think he might have done.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, look, we talked about the penalty. Ian sort of, like all of us, we can't see the right angle. Tom, you thought it was not a penalty.
I've seen the right angle. I've seen it on the you saw it on the highlights.
No, not from behind the goal.
No, but you can see what happens.
All right, I'll have another.
My youngest has got a season ticket in E28. He sits with his friends there. So he's front row, E28. He's got a pretty good line of it. And he says it hits him upper arm there as he's falling. So it's not a lower arm sort of extension. It was just
he's gone like that.
Hit
For those of you that are watching in black and white, I'm just doing a shoulder movement there.
So I don't know, as you're falling, you're obviously going to have your arm out, aren't you? And it hits an upper arm there.
It's harsh.
I think it's
not as harsh as that penalty that was given against Rotherham when 3 yards outside the box.
5 yards
All right.
outside.
Look, I think we've done the game to death.
Yeah.
No midweek game. Next up, Norwich City away. Tom, I mean, that's the sort of game that they've pretty much assured themselves of 6th slot because they beat their closest rivals yesterday, Preston, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which Bristol City's got to turn up there, and if they'll. But do you hopeful of anything at Carrow Road next week, basically?
Yeah, I think we'll give Norwich more of a game than we give Huddersfield. I think we turn up again against better teams. Now, I think the reason we turn up, I know I've given this quite a lot of thought, it's quite hard to explain it, but I think Manning enjoys the tactical battle with other managers that like to play a certain brand of football. I think when Manning can identify that player as their threat, he does a really good job, Manning, at nullifying that threat. So the tactical games like Leicester, where you've got Winks and Ndidi, we were brilliant because Manning identified them as, okay, this is what happens, because he does so much research and so much video analysis. He almost sees it before it happens. Now, in the games where it's more combative and off the cuff, I think he may struggle a little bit more because it's less predictable. And when teams go over the top, you always have that 50-50 chance. But when teams try and play through you, you see the patterns forming, you know what you're doing already. And Norwich, they can be, they've got some really good players like Gabriel Sara, who's been fantastic for them. And I quite like Sainz up front. I think he offers something. But I think, again, when it's more a tactical game and more down to the details rather than a combative nature, we always give them a better game because we identify the threat, we nullify the threat, and then we do what we're good at rather than getting sucked into this physical battle, this tit-for-tat type game like we had against Huddersfield and against Swansea and against these teams that try and impose themselves physically rather than tactically upon us. So, I mean, I think we'll give Norwich more of a game than we give Huddersfield.
Yeah, I mean, if we go up there and get a result and it lines us up for the last home game of the season against Rotherham, and it's looking like there might be something on the final game of the season at Stoke. Ian, Norwich away, Tom's just said we play better against the top sides. It's their next game. They have pretty much consolidated 6th slot, but they'll be giving it 100% for different reasons, won't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have less of the ball. I watched the Norwich Ipswich game, and I watched Norwich. They've been on the telly recently. I've watched them a couple of times, and I would categorise them as very good going forward, but very susceptible at the back. And the two centre backs, I mean, literally milk could turn quicker. So that's our opportunity. Duffy and Gibson are I would say they're good centre backs. They're strong. They're certainly good in the air. So if we decide we're going to pump it forward in the air, they'll absolutely love it. We need to get the ball in behind them like we did with Blackburn. We need to press them because they're not fantastic on the ball. They're not donkeys by any stretch of the imagination, but they're not as good as Dickie and Viner on the ball. And hopefully, Dickie will definitely be back for next week. And I'm hoping Zach will as well.
I think they said Zach will be 2 weeks. I read.
Did he say 2 weeks? Yeah, I know he had a sore knee, so that's a real shame. But if we can get Dickie back in, he's a lot closer. Then that's going to make a difference. And if you had Dickie, Robertson, and Tanner as your back three, I don't think you'd be doing too.
There's not a lot wrong with that, Ian.
I mean, that isn't the end of the field where we've got the major issues, but we need to get Knight back in midfield. And as Tom picked, that's a good point about the amount of planning in detail that Liam Manning goes into. So you'd hope that he comes back. You hope that I'm still hopeful Zach will be back in, but I mean we'll soon know, and we have to go with what we've got. But if we pick, I put 2 teams up on X last night. One that I think Liam Manning will pick if the players are fit, and one that I would do I'd go basic 3-5-2. and get more strength in midfield with
Who
Taylor
was
Gardner.
who was your two, Ian, in that?
Up front,
Yeah.
Wells and Conway.
Yeah, and somebody put on the feed earlier, there's more chance of Mark Ashton coming back to Ashton Gate than there is of Liam Manning paying a 2, but there we go. All right,
I mean, modern, in fairness, modern managers don't. You know, you even go for, I mean, okay, Liverpool are more of a 4-3-3, but most teams now go for the 4-2-3-1, and it's 4-3-3 in possession and 4-5-1 out of possession. And that's what modern managers do. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Richard Latham said about football was more entertaining when you had two wingers and a centre forward and a bloke next to him, two in midfield, overlapping fullbacks, getting crosses in the box. Yeah, it was. But then again, I've seen some abysmal games when we were doing that. So there's no magic bullet. Let's put it that way. And it depends what the other 11 blokes on the field will let you do.
Of course.
I was going to say about the home game against Norwich, actually. I mean, that was an interesting game. Obviously, Adelaide scored that late.
And they beat us in the cup as well, didn't they?
They did beat us 1-0 in the cup. But I actually enjoyed. I watched that game over your side on W13, and I enjoyed us that game. I thought we gave them a good game. I mean, they had a few injuries. I think Gibson was out for them in the centre, and they played McLean at centre back, and I think he did it good. And you're right about Duffy. I think Tommy got behind him quite a few times and gave him a bit of a torrid game. Knight scored, didn't he? That's right, isn't it? Knight scored.
Yeah, we scored an own goal, didn't we?
Yeah, but we played some really nice stuff against Norwich on that day. I don't think Josh Sargent played for them, and he's quite pivotal for them.
No, he had a long-term injury, didn't he?
But
if you remember, their manager Wagner was going to get the sack if we'd have beat him.
How things change, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, and how the same as Ryan Lowe up at Preston. So you know, and that's where I thought, well, when we play somebody and they're struggling, their managers get the sack. They must think, oh great, I got Bristol City next week.
The best one of those was when Graham? Who was it got the sack after Liverpool? Who was Liverpool manager when we beat them in '74? Was that Souness?
94.
Souness. Yeah.
Graham Souness. Yeah.
Well, let's move on. Neil, the top of the division. Yeah, it doesn't really affect us, but just get your view. Then I'm going to come to you, Mark, about the anniversary thing that you said earlier, and then we'll wrap up just with a general chat. But Neil, the top. I mean, I heard Leeds fans calling for the head of Farke, saying, you know, he's not doing a great job. And yesterday, well, Leeds lost at home to Blackburn, bizarrely. Yeah, Friday night, Plymouth beat Leicester. And then yesterday, Ipswich had to come from a goal behind to get a point against Middlesbrough. Nobody's sort of seems as though they want to take that. They're all jockeying not to finish top by the look of it.
I mean, it was a bizarre stat. I think I saw in the week, or maybe a week ago, that form table-wise, there's no real team in the division that is on any sort of form that wins 2, 3, 4 games back to back. Everyone's winning one, losing one, drawing one, losing one, winning one. So everyone's sort of stumbling.
Consistently inconsistent, like us.
And on a given day, I mean, it was bizarre watching. I saw the first half before we went out, the Blackburn Leeds before I left for the game. And it was so symptomatic of the game, the Plymouth game, in a way in which Leeds attacking, and then they just broke away and then scored the goal in the way that they did, while not actually doing that much different. And I think they're all kind of a little bit choking at the top, aren't they? I mean, all three of them, it's obviously 2 from 3 in relation to it, but looking at it, I mean, this is looking at the standings. Ipswich, I get this horrible feeling Ipswich are going to win the championship. I really do, because they're about the only team that's. But of that, Leicester, Leeds, Southampton, Norwich. So Norwich still on parachute payments final year, or have they not got parachute payments? Are they final year?
I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% sure, but I think
Dave Fowles is still on. He'll put something in the feedback.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, West Brom have done fantastically well after a really difficult financial season to get themselves up there. And obviously Ipswich have done what we did in 2007, 2008 and maintained the continuity going into it.
I mean, it's interesting that Southampton have got 2 games in hand on Leeds and they're 6 points behind. And they play.
Guess who they got last game of the season?
Leeds at Ellen Road on the last day of the season. Anyway, that gets interesting. One day, just one day, we might trouble the top of the table. Mark, you pointed out, and you saw the clip that I did, there's an anniversary today. Share it with all of us here and the listeners.
Yeah, 14th of April 2015, Bradford City 0, Bristol City 6. Absolutely brilliant night, best away night ever. And I was fortunate to see it there with my sister.
You've got folks up there, haven't you? Yeah, so you were up there as part of a family trip, yeah?
No, I just went up on Cat's Coats too, and it was a very nice trip indeed, where I wore my suit and red tie, and we were in the service station, and I was buying some food, and somebody came up and said to me, "What time are you leaving?" And I said, "I'm not the driver." I was lucky enough to get on 5 Live.
Can you remember who the side was that day, Mark? Right, because we have a little debate about this. Were you going then, Tom? 9 years ago? No, Tom. Right, what was the side?
Fielding in goal, Tavernier, Ayling, Wilbraham,
Flint,
Freeman, Agard.
Here we go. We got it here. We've got it here. Neil's looked it up here. Frankie Fielding in goal, Luke Ayling, Aidan Flint, Derek Williams in a 3, James Tavernier, what a career he's had since he left, albeit north of the border. Tavernier, Corey Smith, Luke Freeman, Marlon Pack, Joe Bryan, Aaron Wilbraham, Kieran Agard. You have to say that back in the summer of 2014, when we signed Aaron Wilbraham, everybody was wholly underwhelmed by that. Steve Cottrell allegedly met him in a gym out in Dubai and he was out of contract. But what a player he was for us. On the bench that night, we had J. Emmanuel Thomas, George Saville, who's gone on to
he was unknown for
Greg
Wolves
Cunningham,
at the time.
Osborne, what was his name? He's the guy.
Carl Osborne.
He got injured in the pre-season trip to Botswana. Got a very nasty leg injury. He never really made it after that. Wade Elliott, good player. Wade Elliott.
He didn't play much in the second half of the season, but he was a superb player brought in for us. Great experience.
No coincidence. He was one of the first that Lee Johnson got out of the door because he had more of a playing career than Lee ever did.
Shame.
Scott Wagstaff, and who's that?
Dave Richards.
What was Dave Richards?
Sub goalkeeper.
There we go.
But I mean, we beat him 6-0. We could have won more. When I went up there, the only concern I had. I don't know if you remember, Bradford had beaten Chelsea in the FA Cup that season 3-2 at Stamford Bridge, one of the weirdest FA Cup results ever. But City just didn't relent. It could have been. It was a massacre, and it could have been even worse. Yeah. It was just absolutely superb. Yeah. I got home about 3 o'clock in the morning. All I could hear next day on the way to work about 10 o'clock was the Flint Said No song in my head. Yeah. Just could not get it out there.
Happy days.
Yeah, Steve Cottrell walked on cider. That team was brilliant. 96 goals, 99 points. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant season.
And poor old Steve, again, unable to manage the upward relationship with our owners to his own detriment, I have to say. He got an absolute pasting yesterday, and it looks like Forest Green are going to be dropping down to the conference. Ian, on their day, right, because this is 9 years ago and this is now, but looking at that starting 11, how many of those would be in your City team today or would make it? I'll say in the starting 11.
So give me the starting 11
again. Frankie, all right, let's just do it straight comparison. Frankie Fielding.
Do it by player. Frank Fielding, no.
No. Luke Ayling.
Yeah.
Aidan Flint. As he was on their day. Although,
are we talking about championship football?
All right, no, you're right, Ian. Let's talk championship. So you're going to say no for Flint?
Yeah, Aidan Flint. Yeah, possibly. It's a toss-up between him and Rob Dickie. I mean, Rob Dickie's better bringing it out, but Aidan Flint got a lot more goals. But and he got some in the Championship as well. So yeah, fully fit and on form. Yeah, possibly Aidan Flynn.
Derek Williams had a decent career in
No.
MLS, didn't he? No.
Yeah, no.
It's a no-brainer. This Tavernier.
Yeah, he'll do.
He'll do. Corey Smith.
Don't know. I don't think so. No.
No. Luke Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marlon Pack.
No.
Joe Bryan.
Yeah.
Kieran Agar.
No.
Aaron Wilbraham.
No.
Interesting.
Not in the Championship, and and some of it's borderline because we never really. It was a great shame that they didn't give Cottrell the backing that they gave Johnson, because I think we were on a roll. The whole club was on a high.
We could have done an Ipswich, Ian, couldn't we?
We could have done, David. And if you look at the players that Cottrell wanted to sign, they were really good players, and they went on to have at least good Championship careers. I mean, you think one of them was Harry Maguire, and he hadn't done bad for himself, has he?
We were on a roll, and we were on a roll in 2007-8 because we came up and we were rocking, right? Screwed up the transfer window, didn't go for it. Cottrell got that side right in the summer, didn't need to go through the transfer window, screwed it up. Common denominator coming through here. This is about being bold and being brave, which is what Richard Latham was saying in the piece.
Yeah, but you could only be bold and brave in the transfer market if the owner allows you. Now, I'll give you an example. I think Gary Johnson could have really strengthened the squad when we were top of the table and we fell away to make the playoffs. He could have really strengthened that squad because Steve Lansdowne would have given him anything he wanted.
You reckon?
And all we heard about was, well, this bunch of lads has got us where we are now, and I don't want to upset. I don't want to upset the dressing room and all this. And in the end, in the final analysis, that's actually what cost Gary Johnson his job.
Yeah,
and the chance of managing the Premier League. And then he finishes up in Torquay, and we've just gone bust. So. It's how your career. It's pivotal moments in your career, like the substitution he made in the playoff final at Wembley. Those pivotal moments that can completely change your life and career.
Well, yeah, don't get me going on about a playoff final at Wembley when he brought in his lad when he could have put on Vasco and moved Lewis Carey.
Yeah, that's the one.
We've been doing this 4 years and that still rankles. Right, got to bring in Tom. Tom, you were not watching City 9 years ago, but here we are, 24-25 season number 10, right?
I've done nothing.
Of not really doing a lot, save 2017-18 when we weren't bold in the transfer market then, right? As Ian said, pivotal decisions, right? Are you confident that we're going to be any better next season than this season?
No, not confident on it.
What would make you have confidence?
A level of investment into the squad that I don't think is realistic, unfortunately.
All right. Okay.
I think we have a core of players who have done it 3-4 seasons for us. And I think you have to break it up a little bit. You need something new within the club, but whether that's players, I think you need new blood if we're going for it, because I think the squad has proven they are established mid-table Championship squad.
Yeah.
Now, is there room for development to grow into a playoff team? The question is always if they stay fit. Realistically, they are not going to stay fit. And you can't gamble on your team staying fit. You can't say we're only going to get playoffs if this team stays fit. I think you would need, to bring in 2 or 3 £3+ million players to make a push, but I don't think that's achievable. Even with the Alex Scott money, I think that's been
swallowed up.
That's been stowed away.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have a loss this financial year. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to watch that out. When you look at the money that's gone in for Scott, we're going to have a loss this financial year. probably of about 2 million quid, because 20 million quid of that is the Alex Scott money. Very little of it's been spent. Some of it's been spent. We will probably have losses half of what they were previously, but we seem to be in this perpetual circle of relying on an owner to dip his hand in his pocket for 10 million quid minimum every year. And he, if he didn't dip in for the 10 million, where would we be? But then try asking Luton and everybody else that. Neil, what would make you feel more, or do you feel confident going on to next season? I mean, I'm not bothered if Tommy Conway goes. I know he scored double figure. I'm wondering where the goals are going to come. Yeah. Palmer Holden seems to have stopped scoring for Newport. He started yesterday.
Yeah.
But, he's obviously going to be coming back over here and be the Ian says 2 players for every position. So if we're having a bigger person up front, Palmer Holden's that individual. What's going to make you feel confident?
Well, I think when you get promoted, like we did with Cottrell, and you haven't got the Ipswich are a bit of a one-off at the moment with that sort of momentum. Although Luton did it as well to a certain degree when they came up in the playoffs. If that doesn't happen and you haven't got that initial burst, it's all about consolidation. Well, we've done consolidation in the division now. We've had 9 seasons in this league now where we haven't actually got in the playoffs. So,
and sorry to interrupt, and we've had a financial reset. And if we're going to thank Nigel Pearson for anything, is that we've had that reset without going down.
Well, I was speaking to Thomas yesterday about, under McInnes, when we were sort of drifting downwards for those seasons when Millen and then McInnes and then Sean O'Driscoll and everything came in, and there was a certain inevitability when we finished bottom, wasn't it? With 45 points and we went down. And thank goodness, Pearson and Fleming managed to arrest that slide and actually have a slight upturn. But as I've said previously, I don't have an issue with Pearson going. I think, the communication had broken down between him and the board. He wasn't going to get a new contract. So it is what it is. But for next season, it's kind of like, what are we going to do differently from a financial perspective? Because if you're sitting there at the moment and you're thinking, are we just expecting something to happen? Or are we going to actually make something happen? Or, Ian has touched previously about the lack of communication, and that is so quintessential, isn't it, really, to the club. The club don't explain what the vision is for the future. The club don't explain where we're going or what our hopes are, what our aspirations are. They just throw out these meaningless, well, I think we've got a top 6 squad. I think we said, well, how are you backing that up by anything at all? If you sell 35 million pounds worth of players, 30, 35, whichever way we do it, and then you invest, I don't know what we're up to, 6. Although, of course, there are signing on fees and all the rest.
Well, we
of it
spent,
like
interestingly, we spent £900,000 on agents' fees last year, and we were the 4th lowest in the championship, which is ridiculous.
I think it just sends a message to everybody involved with the club. If you get these big fees in, when we've done it before, if you look at the way we did it under the second-hand car dealer, Mr. Ashton, we got these big fees in, and then LJ, did he sign about 60 odd players, didn't he? And that's where all the money went, hoping to sort of recreate it. But what we've tried to do now is, Steve Lansdown's come out with this nest egg thing. Well, nest egg for what?
What does that mean?
Well,
the nest egg is, and that's what the Scott nest egg is, because the nest egg is a £20 million inflow of cash, which will take away our exposure to financial fair play for 2 or 3 seasons.
But then you're just dying by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, of course you are. You're not going for it. All right. No,
eventually you will just drop down, because if you don't show ambition, if you're standing still,
well, that's what we're doing.
Eventually you will drop down.
All right, Mark, and I'll finish with Ian because we need to wrap up. Mark, what are you feeling confident about next season, and what would make you change that view or enhance that view?
I, like a lot of fans, are fed up of hearing meaningless sound bites, and we want to hear a vision. They brought in Liam Manning, pinned their hopes on him. I think it's not Liam Manning's fault. They oversold it with these meaningless sound bites. We want to hear some joined up thinking and some vision about where Bristol City go forward, because season ticket sales are dependent on it. Fans are going to be worried when they see the likes of the experienced James going out the door, and possibly losing some of their best players.
Andy Kane, Joe Williams.
Yeah.
As well.
What are we going to do? Do we have to sell, to buy? What is going to happen? How are they going to help the manager? It's up to them to say that. Come out of the woodwork, explain. They can only give so much away, but let's have some vision. Bring the fans on side. Fans, there'll be lots of fans thinking about renewing their season tickets. I think Liam Manning, he's done okay. We've still got 10 home wins in a season, which is our second best since we came back to the Championship. We're a stable mid-table club, but we've had years of rubbish. Our highest place finish is 8th, and we want better. So let's have a vision about how you're going to do that.
Right.
Bring the fans on side, and we'll all go forward together. You won't convince everybody because there's still a split amongst some fans. But if you want to bring fans on side, come out and explain what you want to try and do soon.
All right. That's a good point there, Mark. Ian, you said on numerous occasions it's all about communication. What have you? Mark said that. We want to have a vision. Is Steve Lansdown going to come out on the pitch for the Rotherham game? Question mark. Be nice if he did. Will he have an interview on Radio Bristol on the final home game of the season? Don't know, right? But what is going to increase your optimism about next season, Ian, to finish today?
The summer transfer window. We know we've got Max Bird coming in, who I rate is a player, but I mean, strangely, he arrived at the HPC, signed a contract, and immediately got injured. So I think one key signing could possibly be a witch doctor, because the place is obviously bloody cursed. But joking apart, what do I want to see a transfer window. We've said that we've got a 9 and we're going to sign a 9 and a 10, and the picture of the 9 is a goal scorer who can play back to goal, hold the ball up, play other players in, and who can run all day, right? Not head on a stick. So let's hope that we get that player. We've got targets as 10s, not just Scott Twine, because I think, in fairness on Scott, the jury's still out on what he's done so far. But having said that, we still haven't lost when he started a game. And over the last 5 games, I've just been sent some information that says we're top of the 5 games in Form League.
Oh, great.
So current Form League. Yeah. So, while we can be critical, we're not losing. And we've always said that, okay, if we're not going to play, you're not going to play cosmic football every week. In fact, you're not going to play cosmic football very often. You might do it 5 or 6 times a year.
Yeah.
Some games you're going to have to grind results out. And yesterday was an example of how we did that. And I think we deserved the point based on our second half performance.
Yeah.
First half, you wouldn't do that. But then again, I think by halftime, neither side had a shot on target.
No.
So, it's not, there's no good people saying, well, Huddersfield deserves to win it because they played some better football. And they did play better football in the first half, a lot better football. So, but and my understanding is that it's 2 players unless players leave. And by players leave, we're talking Tommy Conway, Cam Pring, somebody might come in for Max. So what I want to hear from the board is, do we have to sell to buy at all? So can we get the 9 and the 10 in without selling our best players?
All right, and by our best players, that's Tommy Conway or Cam.
You wouldn't really want to say. I mean, if we can hang on to Tommy and give him some service. I mean, what Wednesday night showed is that with the right service, he's a threat and he could score goals, and so's Naki. So you can understand why both Nigel Pearson and Liam Manning, the first player they wanted to sign was somebody to create, not somebody to stick the ball in the net. So you can understand how they've come to that conclusion. And bear in mind, they see the players every single day. They talk to them every single day, and they know how they are mentally. So they know all that, so they can make more informed decisions than us. And we can pontificate and say, well, what if we played 2 up front? I'd have made different substitutions on Saturday, and a lot of people would have done things differently, and that's just football, and that's why it's a brilliant game, because it's a brilliant game of different opinions.
It's all about opinions.
But what I want to see in the summer is that commitment. But the board needs to come out, not Brian Tinian, not Liam Manning, because Nigel Pearson did a lot of the communication with the fans around, not so much around the details of financial fair play. He never covered that. But he made comments like, well, look, even if we sell Scott, we're not going to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so he managed the fans' expectations around that. He shouldn't have had to do that. Yeah. That's the job of the CEO or the board. It's not Brian Tinian's job either. His job is heading up recruitment, where you've got a head of recruitment that reports into him, and the academy coaches. That's his job, right? But he had to go on Radio Bristol, and he's on there defending the manager. Yeah. That's how the interview turned out. They got him on there under the pretense of, let's talk about the under-18s, and then he got a load of stuff about Liam Manning. Right. What I want to hear from the board is, we can go out, we can get the 9 and the 10, we don't need to sell anybody. And what we need, and then if we want more than that, because we've already got Max Bird coming in, and like Tom said, he's going to take the place of 2 players, really, Andy King and Matty James, probably. Right, Andy King definitely, Matty James probably, I would guess. And Matty didn't do himself any favours with his performance yesterday. So, but curiously, he's another one like Twine. When he comes back into the side, we seem to do a lot better. So that's what I want to hear from the board.
All right, you said that,
and we need.
I need to wrap it up.
And we need somebody to say, and that's what we're going to do. And once we've got that leadership, and they don't need to do sound bites like we've got. Well, they can tell us if we've got a top half wage bill, and I would think we still have. But they can tell us what the wage bill, what in percentage terms, what it come down. We don't need to ask them who's on the most money, because they never tell us, and they shouldn't anyway. But what we can say is, well, how much has the average wage bill dropped between when Nigel Pearson walked in the door to now? And let's see what that is. And let's see how competitive we are with the league. Because when people are working out wage bills, even the experts are using percentages, and they can be wildly incorrect. You know, you could say 70%, and the right number might be 50, or it might be 90. So you can be that far apart. It's not like there's a 5%. It's not like there's a 5% variable. Yeah. Either way,
and you're getting too technical, right? And you've had about 5 minutes on the go there, mate. You've had about 5 minutes on the go. I think we're all in agreement, right? That, and as Dave Fevs has said on the text feed, the board. It's down to the board, and by the board that means John Lansdowne or his dad to come out and say
Gavin Marshall.
Or Gavin Marshall, but Gavin's more Bristol Sport, although he's wearing the mantle at the moment.
He's the CEO of Bristol City, Dave.
Is he? Well, he's very invisible. He's very invisible at the moment. Look, I mean, it would be interesting to see how many season tickets we've sold, because they've been very quick at saying how they've been going when the sales are going well. One thing nobody's mentioned on this chat that we've been having is, utilization of the loan market. Because for me, and I think I tweeted this, I may have said it in the pod in midweek, if you go out and buy a striker at our sort of money, you're talking probably a decent one, 10 grand a week.
Is this the one that we're supposedly bringing in?
Well, I don't know. I'm just surmising here.
If we're bringing in this so-called unbelievable athlete who can run down the whole ball up, everyone would want someone like that.
Yeah.
So if you're buying a quality one, he's going to be, even abroad or not, in the Championship, someone like that is 15 million.
Well, we're not going to spend
someone like Pivot, who is that player, 15 million abroad, it's still going to be 5 or 6 and a gamble.
Yeah, which plays into what I said about the loan market, because we can't afford that sort of player. The sort of player we can afford is going to cost us 10 grand a week in wages on a 3-year contract, which is 1.5 million, and 2.5 million typical transfer fee a la Jason Knight. Yeah, so total investment 4 million quid over 3 years. Yeah, that we don't know if they're going to be enough to make a difference because they're not in the Piro standard. Surely it would be better to go out and spend 30 grand a week which is and Dave Fez will pick me up here. Say, what about the loan transfer fee? Well, what about going and hopefully out there must be a Tammy Abraham type. Yeah, we keep he's a one-off, but a top quality young striker where the total exposure is 1 year at 30 grand a week, not having a player like, sorry to say this, Harry, if you're probably not listening, but Harry Cornick, right?
Yeah.
Who we've got him round our neck for 3 years, right? We're a year into that now. Yeah. You know, we're doing the same old thing of buying quantity, not quality.
I think you've got to think about it.
I disagree with that.
All right.
The Mabudi.
We're not buying. We're not buying
Hang on,
quantity.
Neil's talking in. Let Neil finish.
All right, sorry.
The Mabudi kind of thing illustrates you've got to be very careful about it.
Yeah.
You go out with Mabudi, I'm guessing he's not costing us that much in terms of anything from Westerlo, but Premiership 2, fantastic player. Man City, he's this, he's that, or whatever. You know, it's a big jump from an under-21 a Premier League player into the Championship.
15-goal Championship.
And these players in Premier League 2, these under-21 players are these 30 grand players that you're talking about, are the 25, 30 grand. You could easily have invested wages. You could easily be talking 25, 30,000 for a Premier League 2 under 21. He's sensational. Oh, look at him. YouTube reel and all the rest of it. And he turns into another Mabuda.
Of course, no, but at least, and equally, the other side of that argument as well is that we had a player called Sammy Schmodix who came in and didn't get a kick, and he's a leading scorer in the Championship. Scored the winning goal.
He's the only one, I think, over the last 5 years.
He went down the division to come back up again.
He did,
and he found his feet because he went League 2, and I think League 2.
He went League 1.
Yeah, but came from Colchester.
Yeah,
right.
So League 2 up to the Championship, and at that stage it was too big a jump, and then he went down to come back again. Right. And it's just a timing thing.
Okay, Ian, you wanted to interrupt there, and then I'll let Mark have a word just to wrap up. Ian,
the quantity, not quality, is really unfair and it's wrong. I mean, if you look at the players we brought in the summer, and the players that we've been bringing in since I'll say since Ashton left, and you look at players like George Tanner, 250 grand, Rob Dickey, 600 grand. We've got, because Vyman's gone the other way, we got a fantastic deal on Taylor Gardner-Hickman. Now, you know, Jason Knight, we got a really good deal on. Max Bird, terrific deal. So I don't think until you see them playing, and once again they play their best positions. Hayden Roberts, nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, so, Ian, you're right.
You don't always get. You don't always have to pay a loan fee.
No.
There's a big rumor.
For every Tammy Abraham, there's a Ryan Kent, as Benny has just pointed out here. Ian,
Dave, that's football. Look at Man United. They bought a winger for 85 million quid, and the Man United fans say,
I know. All right, Mark.
And they want the manager sacked, and so do Leicester. And it looks like if they win their game in hand, they'll go top of the league, for God's sake. What's the matter? What's the matter with people these days? What do they expect?
We are fickle. It's the same in every club. Mark, just to finish from you, one final shot from you on this.
What do you want to talk about, Dave?
Whatever you want to say, having listened to what we've written.
I just want to say let's try and play some football in our last 3 games. City look a bit tired. Dave Fevs has picked me up on Viner. I saw a comment on OTIB. I don't know anything about Zach Viner, and I hope he's fit next week. So sorry if I gave the impression that I was an expert. Well, obviously I'm not. That was subjective. But let's hope we can. We got a week to get back in the groove. Get back on the grass. Hope Rob Dickey comes back. It's going to be a tough game against Norwich, who look like that would secure their playoff place, getting a result against us after winning late against Preston. So I'd like to see us get. It would be good if we could get 6 points in the last 3 games. 7 points would be fantastic. 2 wins and a draw.
I think if we got 5 from the last 3, which is beat Rotherham, draw at Norwich, and draw at Stoke,
being unbeaten would be brilliant.
There we go. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening or watching. If you've been watching it live on YouTube, we'll be doing our Norwich review episode at 6 o'clock on Saturday evening. But in the meantime, everybody, have a good week. Have a good rest of the weekend. All the best to you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
God bless everybody. Cheers. Take care.